It's so good to have you today. I'm Candus Kampfer. If you don't know, I love to help business owners and bookkeepers simplify QuickBooks and stop overcomplicating it. So if you've never been to one of my workshops before or never caught a replay, I always start with the thought of the day, and we're going to use the How to Love Yourself deck. This is my new deck. You may have seen it. I've only used it a few times, but I like to shake up the cards. Let me know where you're coming in from. Say hi. If I miss your comment, it's never intentional. It's just that we get moving fast. So let's see. I'm going to put these out and we'll see what we're meant to hear today. So that's what I always say. What are we meant to hear today? And I just kind of feel for a card. Now, if you've never pulled a card and you're like, well, what if I got the wrong card? There is no wrong card. You just say to yourself, there is no wrong card, and you just pick one anyway. Hello from Miami and Wisconsin and Louisiana. That's cool. I love it. We get people sometimes from all over the world, which is fun. So today's card is, I am totally in charge of my life now. The moment I say positive affirmations, I step out of the victim role. I am no longer helpless. I acknowledge my own power. So today's card is about taking responsibility, knowing that you create your life, and that if you don't like how it's going, you can change it. So this is kind of funny. I remember one time we were going, this is a story. We were gonna go, we were staying with my grandma. We had rented out our house and we were gonna go to Mississippi. You might've heard this on my last workshop. And we were gonna go to Mississippi. And I remember, like, I got to a point where I was we were like in between. We hadn't quite left yet. We were getting ready to leave. And there was things that coming up in my life. And I was like, I don't really love this. And I said to myself, whatever you don't like, you can change it. Sometimes it's as easy as the mindset, not necessarily like literally leaving something or changing something, but your perspective of how you feel about it. All right. So maybe you're meant to hear that maybe it's more about your perspective than it is actually changing something. Did you guys enjoy today's tip? Let me know the inspirational insight. And then I am going to share my screen. So today we're going to talk about reports. Why do you need them? How to pull them? And I'm just going to share, and I'm going to share stories about why I think reports are important as we go. So I would love to know in the chat, give me a 1 if you pull your reports right now and you're pretty confident, and give me a 2 if you are like, no, that's why I'm here. And I really want your help, Candace. Like, either way, there's no judgment. I just kind of am curious, the people who are here, are you already pulling reports or not? Okay, so we have 1s, pulling reports, great. 2, that's why I'm here. Oh, I love it, you even said it, that's hilarious. A 1.5, so you pull your reports, but you're a little unsure. Already pulling some reports, but I want to do better. Okay, cool. All right, just wanted to check in. I'd like to know, we're gonna chat, so be prepared that when I ask you a question, I'm like looking to find out what's going on. I need more experience. Okay, so am I gonna teach you absolutely everything you need to know about reports? No, but I want you to know why reports are important. I was visiting with one of my private clients who is a bookkeeper, and she, yesterday I called her about something, and she goes, I noticed you're doing a workshop on reports. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to teach people like how to pull a report. She's like, isn't that the whole reason everybody puts all the data into QuickBooks is to pull a report? And I said, yes, but not everybody knows actually how to pull one. So if you've never heard, you might have noticed if you got my email about why I'm doing today's workshop, which is this. 5 years ago, I went to see my hairdresser, and she had been using QuickBooks for like 5 to 6 years at that point. And all she had ever done is go down here to the banking center and like write a check or use the check register and enter all her data. And she was struggling in her business. I was inspired to tell her, like, because she was going through divorce and everything. I was like, maybe you should rent a place in town. I know it'd be easier for me to see you, because she had an office, a studio outside of her house. And I know that you could get more business, right? Because everybody wants to know, what can we do to improve our business, to be more, especially when you're struggling, especially when it seems like, why is it so darn hard, right? We just want to know, what's that like quick fix? And I said to her, well, get a studio in town. How many cuts and colors do you need to make your rent? And she was like, I have no idea. And I said to her, well, how do you prepare for your taxes? And she said, QuickBooks. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show you the 3 clicks. Hurry up and cut my hair. So if you never come to one of my workshops, I share that. But it's why I started teaching online. And so as I contemplated what would be a good topic to teach you guys, and I did a survey and you said reports, it reminded me of the whole reason I originally started teaching online, which had to do with a lot of people don't even know where to go for reports. And even though it says reports, you're not really sure. So I just want to start with what I call the 3 clicks, which they're not even really clicks anymore, just the reports and then company and financial, profit and loss. So there's a lot of different things we're going to cover. You might feel like you're a little lost and confused in the process. And I want to tell you this, anytime you're learning something new, like when you first start to figure it out, it can feel a little overwhelming. But instead of getting like, I just can't learn this, just sit with it for a little bit. You can always watch the replay and just take a moment to like rewatch it, hear what I have to say and let it soak in. Okay. So especially if like accounting and tracking your numbers and things is not necessarily your strength, that's okay. You're in the right place. So I have a Getting Started with QuickBooks workshop where I talk about this and I talk more about where the numbers come from. So if at the end of this, you still feel like I'd like to learn more, I highly recommend joining my workshop. I'm doing some next week. You can go to CandusCamper.com/workshop. We'll put it in the comments, but it's a good place as well if you still feel like you need more at the end of today. So reports, company and financial, profit and loss. So a lot of times people will call this the income statement or a P&L. What does it mean? A profit and loss is how much income do you have minus your expenses? Okay, where does your business sit? And this is what she had never pulled. So the thing to know about a profit and loss, these are just like take notes, just listen, let it absorb. Don't worry about remembering all of it. But P&L or profit and loss has a begin date and an end date. So you say, during this time frame, I want to know how much money have I made or lost. So you can choose to look at what's going on this year to last month. This is a sample file that I do for my teaching purposes. And so this will show you a time frame, anything that happened during this time frame. Now, a common question that I get asked, and I love to teach on my workshop, my Getting Started workshop, which is the difference between cash and accrual basis. Most people don't get this. I think John is here joining us today, and he told me recently, like, he finally figured out what this meant, and it was such a life changer for him. So if you don't get it the first time, it's okay. But the difference is it's actually not that hard. Cash basis, the way the reports are generated is as soon as you receive money, it shows up on the profit and loss on cash basis. The moment you pay for your expenses, it shows up on your profit and loss. On accrual, which is over here, I'll click on it. You'll notice now, see, look at the income says 35, but on cash, it's 21. The reason is because accrual basis is what you've invoiced in QuickBooks if you use the invoice feature. So it's everything you've billed during that date range that you're picking up here. Okay. So also with accrual, if you're using like the accounts payable feature, it's basically liabilities and income is at the date that it happened, like the date you enter it, and cash is the date you pay it. Does that make sense? So people will sometimes say to me, Candace, I just entered in a bill, but it's not showing up on my profit and loss. Why? And I say, well, are you pulling it on accrual basis or cash basis? If you enter a bill, but you haven't paid it yet, but you're pulling cash basis, it's not going to show up. I love to use this as a tool to manage your business because you can go, okay, based off what we've received in money and based off of our expenses, this is our bottom line. When it's a positive number, not a minus in front of it, that means you made profit. Okay. So you have income, the different forms of income that you have. Then you have which total here. Then you have any cost of goods, which is, everybody always asks me this, it's anything in direct proportion to the products or services you offer. So with my husband's construction, we set his up where my husband had a hard flooring company. So we set his up where he'd have his different income categories that he wanted to see to manage and grow his business. Maybe that was refinishes, refinishing floors, installation, different things like that, baseboards, whatever it is that you offer and you want to know on a profit and loss, P&L, and then for cost of goods, for him, it would be like sandpaper finish, wood that we purchased, anything that went directly increased or decreased based off how much we sold. Okay. That's what cost of goods is. And then it gives you the total gross profit. So income minus cost of goods. Now, if you don't have cost of goods, it does not matter. It's okay. But sometimes people go, Candace, how do I get my gross profit number? And that has to do with subtracting out what it costs you to provide your products and services. Okay. Are you learning something? Or are you like, what is she talking about? Let me know if it makes sense. If you have questions, just throw them in there. I'll answer them. All right. And then under expense, it's going to be all the other types of expense you have. Insurance expense, because typically insurance doesn't fluctuate as much if you do, depending on how much sales. If you do 150 for the year or 200,000, your liability insurance doesn't change all that much. So that's considered a regular expense. The computers that you buy, your internet doesn't change based off how much you sell typically. So that's a regular expense, as well as like office supplies, those kinds of things. All right. So those go the rest of your business expenses. And those total here. If you have what we consider other income or other expenses like credit card rewards, interest income, those go below that, they total, and then you get your net. Okay. So it takes your net income and then your other income or expenses, and then it gives you your net at the bottom. Now, one time I was on a call in one of my mastermind groups, and one of the ladies said, Candace, why is this number negative? And I said to her, that's because you had actually a loss, meaning you had more in expenses than you had in income. If you really want to be able to see your losses in like a more clean, easy to understand way, you can always customize your reports. This is a little bit advanced, but we're going to just go there. So you click customize report, fonts and numbers, and then you come down here and you say, put it in red. And then anything that's negative, you could have in red if you want, or you can choose to also do your brackets in different ways. So these are how you want your negative numbers to show up. You can do it in like your little parentheses, or you could do it as a minus in the back end, or you can just leave it the way the red off if you prefer. All right. But that's one way to know. The one nice thing about doing your numbers in red is typically on a profit and loss, there shouldn't be anything in red unless you have some kind of mistake. So you want to make sure that you're looking for that. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's just take a second, and I want to go back over some of the other features. So I told you that you can drop these down and pick time frames. So you can choose to drop this down and say last year, or you can actually use the calendar, or you can type in right over top of the numbers. Okay. If you have an older version of QuickBooks and you don't see the report basis cash versus accrual here, you can always click customize report and you'll find it here under report basis. Now, sometimes people go, okay, I didn't know what cash versus accrual the difference was before. What should I be using? And I can't give you that advice because that's a tax question, but I can educate you on what the difference is between cash and accrual basis so that you can manage your business. You can use both. So you can have a typical way, a default way that your report generates by going under edit preferences. And then you can go down to your reports. And under company preference, you can choose cash versus accrual. So if you go to your tax professional and they go, your accrual basis or your cash basis, and you find that when you pull your report that it naturally is in the wrong type, you can actually just go up to edit preferences, go under the reports, company, and change, as long as you have admin rights, you can change cash versus accrual. Okay. And then it will become your default, what it usually is. But that doesn't mean that you can't change it at any time. How I use this in my business is I'll say, okay, where are we at as far as paid? But then I'll look at accrual like, well, if everybody paid for the products and services that we offer, where would we be at? And you can kind of go back and forth and you can compare who's paid you versus what would you be at if everybody paid you and you had paid all your expenses. Now, one thing to remember is when it becomes like a new year, old year, sorry, my piece of paper's in the way. If you entered an invoice in December but your customer doesn't pay you till January. On cash basis, that number is going to show up in January. On accrual basis, it's going to show up in the previous year. So you just want to be careful if you're like, well, I don't understand why it's not showing. It's probably because there could be something between different years, something to consider. Okay, does that make sense? Are you guys getting it? Are you learning something? Let me know. I don't know why my chat sometimes likes to go back. Okay, so thanks. If I have a home-based business and I use my home internet, how does that work as far as expenses? Can I add that to QuickBooks? If you're using it for your business, yes. You may need to ask your tax professional at what percentage you can use for your business versus personal. That's more of a tax question of like, what's the percentage that you can use to write off? That's not my expertise. My expertise is teaching you how to enter it into QuickBooks. So I use my home internet, so to speak. I have a studio at my house, but you just need to ask them like, what's the percentage that you use for business versus personal? And then how do you write that off? Okay. All right. So when you're thinking, and I talk about this in the Getting Started QuickBooks Workshop, but when you're thinking about designing your profit and loss, this is where I find a lot of people get confused. They don't understand where these titles come from, like the late fee or the books over here, these different job supplies. When you go to set up your QuickBooks originally, you set up a chart of accounts. So under list chart of accounts, every title that is going to show up in your books, I'm going to take the inactive off, is going to be coming from this. So anytime you have a report and you don't like what it's called, like you have a typo or you want to rename it, you can rename it. Now, whenever you rename your chart of accounts, it renames everything that's ever been in your chart of accounts. So if you want to like make an adjustment for the future, then what you want to do is you might want to make the old one inactive and create a new one. That's a little bit more advanced than what we're going to cover today, but that's another thing you can do. Would you like to know how to pull out or delete downloaded banks, items, credit cards for your business? Okay, Rosemary, we're not covering that today. I'll have Gracie add it to our list and we'll add it for the Q's with Candus, or if we do another one. Next week, I'm going to be doing some bonus Q&As that are about any topic. Today, I want to try to keep it focused as much as possible on reports themselves. What is the best way to report your income for your business on the P&L versus cash? Maria asked that. So there are rules depending on the size of your business, the type of business, on which one. But most smaller businesses are cash basis. The thing is, once your tax professional picks one, you really are supposed to stay with that. So I would recommend you ask your tax professional based off your business, what is the best thing? Okay, perfect. So I see there's some random like questions that are outside of reports. Today's thing is just reports. I don't want to disappoint you guys, but I'll have Gracie add them to our list. Yeah, so I'm going to go through the different types of reports. That's what today's about. Perfect. So the thing is, though, that we have to start, like the way I love to teach QuickBooks is we have to start foundationally. If I just start jumping into all kinds of reports, but you don't know where like these titles come from, you're gonna get confused later. Okay, so the titles of the reports and where the data comes from is your chart of accounts. If you ever want to change it, that's where you change it. Okay. What else did I want to tell you about this? Oh, so let's get into like some fun stuff. So one thing that I love to teach, I just clicked something, but I don't know what I clicked. Oh, reports. I like to always look at the previous year. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to look at where am I at this year, but where was I at the same time last year? And you can still do cash versus accrual. Where did I invoice or what was I paid in comparison? Look at, this is a sample file. I don't know how this happened, but they're not that much different from one year to the next, which is really interesting to me. Customize your report. You can add a dollar amount of change or a percentage. So a dollar amount looks like this. What did the dollar amount change from year to year? And then what was the overall percentage of change from one to the other? I think it's kind of, I like this report. The other thing I like to do with the profit and loss that a lot of people don't know is that you can click on this button and you go to the very top and click all. So a lot of times what people think they need to do is they need to know like the first date that they were in business and what's today's date and put that in to get it. But actually, if you just go up here and click all, QuickBooks will give you a report that has everything you've ever entered into your QuickBooks, which is really interesting to see like how your business has grown. So you can do that. And that will be like everything you've ever entered into your QuickBooks if you've been using QuickBooks for more than a year. And then if you've picked all the dates, but now you'd like to look at it by say year, like what have I entered over the years I've had this file, you can use columns and you can look at the years. And what this will give you is like 2014, 15, 16, 17. This is how long I've had this sample file, and how the years break down. And then what was the profitability for each of those years. So when you're looking at your business and you're trying to make business decisions, you can say, okay, well, in the past, we are earning this much from this place. Now we're doing this. How can we increase that? Or is it time to move away from that product or service that we're selling? Where are we making the most profit, which we'll get to in just a minute. So that's just a few things that I love about the reports. If you ever want to pick like this year that you're in, and then you want to see like, well, how are we doing on a quarterly basis? You can choose quarterly. So when you show columns, it's the date range you picked, and then based off what you choose in here, right? You can choose it by quarter, by year, by customer, by class, like all different kinds of details. And then if you scroll back up to total only, it will always give you just whatever the total is for the period of time you're picking. Does that make sense? So I like to look at this by quarter. I also like to look at it by month. So I could see month over month over month for the year. How am I doing? If you just want to look at a specific month and then compare last year to that, or you want to do like this year to date, and then you can do it by month. You can add last year to date by month. The thing is, you don't want to get too much detail on your report that it's hard to read it. That is the key to really using reports. Is it gets exciting to get all the data, but if the data you're trying to pull is too complicated and the report becomes pages and pages long, you can't actually make decisions from that. So then in that case, you'd want to run maybe a few reports and look at different months compared. So like, let's just say you were like, let's just look at what we did January. And then that was a really very good sample. Let me look at like January through March. Let's just do that. What did we do January through March? And then you could say, where were we at from the previous year? And you click OK. And it will tell you January to January, the last 2 years, February to February, March to March, and you can see the total. Like, where was the difference? If you're trying to figure out like where was the spike or drop from the different months over the years, and then what is the quarterly? So these are just details that you can get to help you make decisions. Okay. I love reports. The truth is you're doing all of this work to get to this point, right? Like you enter all the data so that you can see your tax professional, but what about you looking at your reports on a regular basis? I've noticed bad debt under the expense. What is that? So on the report, bad debt is when if you're using accrual basis and somebody isn't going to pay you, you can write off what they owed you. That's what bad debt is on the account. Is there a budget comparison report? Yes. Can you show how to change the title to the income statement, please? Yes, I actually taught this to my Simplified community this month. If you don't know, I have a QuickBooks Simplified, and it's a community where they pick the trainings. One of the things they wanted was how to customize reports. So we covered that this month. But what you do is you go under customize reports, and you go to header and footer, and you can change this to say whatever you want. So if I just wanted to say Candus's report, you just change it like that. I cover all of this too in Confidence with QuickBooks. So if you're thinking like you're ready to really understand and get comfortable with QuickBooks, something to really consider. But that's how you change it. Pretty easy, right? A lot of things aren't hard if somebody shows you how to do it. It's when you're like, what button do I push and where to go? It's like me trying to learn Instagram. Oh my goodness. I was like, why is this so hard? It should be easier. Anyways, okay. So that's that report. One of the other things I love to teach in my Getting Started with QuickBooks Workshop is the collapse button. So when you have sub accounts like here under insurance, when you click collapse, it shrinks them. Something I really love. So those are things that you can think about. So if your report's too long to read, simplifying it. That's one thing. Okay, then I want to teach you a couple different profit and losses. Okay, so that's the standard profit and loss. And we got into like, how can you do comparisons? They do have some here like profit and loss year to date, profit and loss. These are like canned reports they've already come up with. What I was showing you is how can you start customizing it on your own. But when my husband was doing hardwood floors, we took over my father-in-law's business. We started getting where we're like, we're really not making as much money as we think. And so we went to him for advice and he said, just lower your rates. And we're like, really? And I said, I'm doing QuickBooks. Let's look at the profit and loss by job. You get this report by creating your customers and then entering your data accordingly. And so what we were able to do was we started looking at the jobs and we started seeing that based off what we were currently charging, we were actually having a loss in that business. And so I'm like, lowering the rates, because my father-in-law, we went and asked him, like, what should we do? My husband did. And he said, just drop your rates and then you'll get more business and everything will work out. And like, logically, we're like, that doesn't really make sense, but we need to look at the numbers to know. And so we pulled this report, profit and loss by job. We started looking at like what we were earning, right? The income. And then we were looking at all of our expenses. And we realized that just lowering our rates and working more wasn't actually going to fix the problem because we weren't making enough profit on the different jobs. So that's why I absolutely love this report. The same is true from cash versus accrual, which is what did they pay you versus what did you bill? So if you have customers who pay you later, you might want to look at this report based off accrual, like if they paid you, but then also based off what they have paid you. That is the difference between those. Remember that. It's really important. Does that help you guys? Like, have you guys checked out this report? To get this, which is job costing, basically, you would need to use the customer center, create invoices, or you could use sales receipts. And then when you're entering in your expenses, you would need to come over here and choose different customers so that when you're spending money, they know like which of the jobs you're using it for. Now there's a difference between billable, which is here, which is I'm going to bill my customer for it, and leaving that as unbillable, which just means I want to know how much I paid in expenses, but I don't need to charge my customer. So for my husband's construction, he would give them a bid and the price didn't change if he spent extra money or not. It was the quote is what they got, right? And so we didn't bill the customer, we just tracked it. Okay. So I like to give you guys examples because I think it makes it make more sense and it's a little easier. Can QuickBooks do a statement of cash flow using the direct method? So QuickBooks does do a statement of cash flow. You'll have to go in and check that out. I'll show it to you in a few minutes. So the thing to know, I want to stay on the profit and loss for a little bit longer. If you want to know about the statement of cash flow, I don't know that I'll cover that today just because it's more detailed, but you can come down here and you can check it out and play with it and see if it gives you like go in and like check things. This is the thing. Whenever you want to learn QuickBooks, one of the things that I want to inspire you, I was recently visiting with some of my alumni and I was like, if you want to learn QuickBooks, part of it is just getting in there and clicking around and knowing you're not going to break something. Like, I wonder what that report does. Click on it and see. So another report that I really love is the profit and loss by class. So people don't always know the difference between a job and a class and when to use each one. So I'll give you some examples. Profit and loss by class gives you columns. So this is great for rental properties. It's great if you have multiple locations. And sometimes churches use it so that they can see where their donations came from. So it kind of depends on your business. The benefit of using classes is that you can pull columns and then you can also pull reports just by individual classes. So if you're ever doing like, I don't recommend this, but if you ever have like your personal and your business commingled, you could have your personal and your business as a class and then choose to customize your reports, pick a filter. It's a little bit more advanced too. But you can go under class and you can choose just to pull, say, business. And it's going to give you only the profit and loss. It's only going to show that specific class. I love to use profit and loss for my rentals because it allows me to pull and see like where the money came in for each individual property. And instead of trying to create your chart of accounts where it's like each property is built in over here to the left, you set up classes and then you can get reports and you can just have like rental income. And then it says it came from Main Street, it came from 2nd Street, it came from 5th Street, and you know like each property. If you haven't been using that, I highly recommend it. Classes. The thing to know about classes though, is every transaction you enter, if you're using classes, you need to assign it a class. So there is more data to enter, but it also, the thing about QuickBooks is the more you enter, the more detail you can get. So there's a fine line between how do you get the detail you need without overcomplicating, which is like the thing I love to teach the most, and why I love to get to know you guys' businesses, so that I can help you figure that out. All right. Okay, so those are the questions. I don't see any new questions. That's good. Profit and loss by job and by class. So not everybody is going to want to use profit and loss by job. But if you're in construction or you are like buying supplies for your customers and then you're also billing them, I love this report. And then if you have rentals or multiple locations, one time we had a painting contractor that had multiple locations. And so we taught her the classes so she would know like her San Francisco location versus her Los Angeles location, and then business in general. You always want to also have a business class, so that anything that doesn't belong in one of those places goes over to the business, right? So like with our rentals, we have a business class so that we can track stuff that's not related to any property, but that the business still pays for. Can you explain where the cost of goods is pulled from on a profit and loss statement, specifically if purchase orders are used, or feel free to disregard if it's too advanced for this workshop? So the way that a cost of goods is all based off how you assign your items. Okay, so this goes deeper into QuickBooks, but it's important to know. So the way QuickBooks works is you have a chart of accounts, and that is where all your reports pull the data from. But how does QuickBooks point to the chart of accounts is the question that you kind of are asking. To go deeper into that, you have when you're writing checks here, you can go directly to your expense accounts, right? So you're directly picking what's going to show up. But if you're wanting to know where is it going to show up from an invoice, where is it going to show up from a purchase order, you're using items. And so if you want to know where is this item going to show up, it all has to do with where it's pointing to. And if you're using one item for both sides, so I'm getting too advanced, it's where you have your cost of goods pointing. So if you're wanting to know like, how is the cost of goods going to show up on my report? It's all based off how you're pointing to it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Lisa, but that's what you're going to need to think about. When I create an invoice or I enter a purchase order, and I'm entering my expenses, where is the item coming from? If you're like, say you're entering a bill and you're using the items feature, where is this item pointing on the back end to and then that item points to the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts shows up on your report. Okay, so can you customize a P&L from actual versus budget? So yeah, you have to have a budget set up in QuickBooks. So you go under budget and you go budget versus actual, profit and loss budget performance, right? So I don't have a budget set up, so I can't really show you. You'd have to go in and I'd have to create, so you create a budget based off of whatever it is you're wanting to know. So these are all questions. Do you want your budget based off jobs? Do you want your budget based off a balance sheet or a profit and loss? And then do you want to start from scratch or do you want to use your previous year? And if you just click finish, it will build one out from your previous year for the next year. And then you can pull up profit and loss. It would be hard for me to do right now because I haven't had any data in 2020 to do actual versus, but that's how you do it. So you go under reports, budget, forecasting, actual versus, and you can do a profit and loss budget performance as well. And they'll give you can go mess with those. All right. You're welcome. Lisa said, thank you. You're welcome. Okay. So we got a little off track. Let's go back. So when you're reading your reports, the things to know, and this is the stuff I teach also, I said this before, but if you want more detail about like where it comes from or like how to actually set your QuickBooks up, I'd recommend that. But you want to think about when you're setting up your profit and loss and you're thinking about reading reports, If you're brand new and you're like, what she just said was way over my head, that's okay. We have people in this community at all different levels. So if you're brand new and you go, okay, I just want to like read my report. To get started, pull it and say, where is my income coming from? And then if you say, I see that I sold, it says in books is the category, I have $1,500, but I don't know what that is, double click on it. Then that will pull up all of the detail reports, like the detail that pulls, like generates that report, the facts behind the scenes. And then if you're like, yeah, but I don't remember what this thousand's for, just double click again and it will pull up your report. Okay. So this gives you ability to go back. So whenever your tax professional says to you, what is this number? And you're like, I have no idea. Now you do. Double click, drill down till you know the answer. And if you get there and you're like, yeah, that's not in the right spot, well, then you can start fixing it and start moving it to where you want it to go. Does that make sense? How's everybody doing? Are you learning something? Are you getting it? You feeling confused? Please make sure if you have questions, you pop them in the chat, because that's the best place. Good learning. Thanks. Okay, great. So let's move on. All right. So this is something else I want to inspire you is like when you customize your reports, you can do what's called memorize them. So let's just say that we want like this year to date. So that's going to change all the time, but we always want to know where we're at year to date. You can click memorize. And what it does is it takes a snapshot. So if you've renamed your report, which we showed earlier, you've customized it year to date, you've made like all these changes, and you want to be able to pull that report quickly and easily, you can memorize it and name it whatever you want. And then in the future, you can go into reports, memorize, and let's just say it'll be here, all the different ones you've created. Here's all the samples I've done in the past. And let's just say I want to do monthly sales by customer. See how this is one of the ones I did in the simplified community recently, but you can customize whatever report you want after you've made it the way you like it. And you're like, I got all the things I wanted and I don't want to redo it. Memorize it and save yourself some time. Okay. So you can name it whatever you want, and you can make adjustments and update it and rememorize it as you go. All right. I want to keep it not too deep because I know some of you, I don't want you to be overwhelmed. And then some of you are like, I'm ready for way more. So we're trying to keep it balanced for everybody. Can you run an owner's equity report? Yes. Sorry if I asked the same question. How do I change the charge from one expense category to another? We're not actually covering that necessarily today, Ron, but you would just open it up and change it. So wherever it says on the expense, you don't like it, change it. It's really that easy. So if you just pull up a check and you don't like it, you just go here and you go, I meant to be subcontractor, and you just change it. Now, remember, if it's old, it's outside of the current year, you need to be careful of what you're changing. But if it's in the current year and you haven't filed your taxes, you can change whatever you want. How do I find a customized year-to-date report with the columns total amount for each individual that makes contributions for a church? So it depends if you're using nonprofit. If you're using nonprofit, you could come down here to your reports and just pull one by donor contribution summary. And it would tell you like all that they've contributed. So it depends what version of QuickBooks you are. If you're just using regular QuickBooks Pro, then you might need to create what we call a workaround because it might not generate that report for you. Okay, great. So can you memorize reports for customers? You can memorize any report you want. Darlene, any report you want, you can memorize it. Okay, so if you're brand new to reports, I want to give you this. If you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm a little lost, this is where you want to start. Go to report. So I always go here and I pull all my reports this way, but that's because I know specifically what report I want to generate. But if you're brand new, I'd recommend going up to reports, the report center, or if you're a visual person and you kind of know what you want, but you want to be able to see it without having to click on each individual report, you can come here to the report center and you can come through, and these are all your different types of reports. Now I have some extra reports because I'm on the accountant's version. So I have reports specific for industries, the premier editions. You may not have those, that's okay. So you can look at these in a few different ways. So you can click on company and you'll see them here. Over here, there's 3 different views. So this one, you can go through and you can click. Not only does it give you a picture of what it's going to look like, but it gives you a description at the top, and you can always make it your favorite or run it. If you make it a favorite, it will go over to your favorite reports here or over here under run favorite reports. So you can do that, and you can click through and say, oh, I kind of like that, gives me what I want, or that's not what I want. I like this because if you're not sure what it's going to give you and you're a visual person, this really helps you. The other thing you can do is you can look at like the list view. If you just want a quick summary, or you can look at the detail. I think that's considered the detail view. Oh, this is the grid view is what they call it. And then this gives you not only a picture, but it also gives you a look and feel. The only thing this doesn't do that the other view, one of the other views gives you, is a detail of what it's going to, like what this is going to tell you. Okay. So you can go through and you can do these for all different types of reports until you get familiar with the ones you want. And then eventually you'll get familiar and you'll just go under, like, say, employees and payroll, and then you'll just find payroll summary. It's the same thing here as you're going to see here. They're even called the same thing, but you'll get familiar with it. Okay. All right. Now, something else you may or may not know is that you can go through and you can look at contributed different reports. So these are reports that different people have contributed to QuickBooks, Intuit users. Okay, these are reports other people have done. I can't believe we've already been here for 40 minutes. I have an 11 o'clock, so I'm gonna have to go pretty soon, but I wanna finish. So these are different reports that you can go through. You can look at the report center, all right? And at any time you get confused, I would recommend going there. Something else I really like is the company snapshot, which gives you kind of a different way to look at your reports. It's still report detail, but it gives you like your sales, and it looks like, you know, you can do it yearly, you can do it monthly, like you can look at all different types of reports. So these are based off customers. So you can go through and look at different customers and what's happened with your different customers over time. And you can choose to preview your report, change your report. So it's kind of a different type of report that most people don't really talk about, but one I really like. You can add content, you can restore your defaults. We were talking about this one the other day, so I want to make sure I tell you about that. The other thing that somebody asked me recently was, do I always have to go up to reports to get reports? And the answer is no. If you want, you can always go into the customer center, and there are reports that you can do here. So you can do quick reports, open report. You can do reports inside the centers as well. So if you want to go down here and you want to say, I want to know what my balance detail is and I want to report for that, you choose the setting here, and then you click run reports, view your report, and it will give you whatever the detail is for that customer or vendor based off the different reports that you pick. So like, say you wanted a report just on your estimates for that specific customer, you can generate a report based off basically the details that you're giving, the time frame. So it could be like, I want all my sales for this year or all that you've ever had. And then you can run a report specific to those as well. If you didn't know about these kinds of reports, they're kind of an extra fun report that you can go through and get more specific reports for your customers or vendors. Has the same thing. And then the other thing I want to teach you is that under transactions, you can go over here and click on estimates, sales orders, invoices, and you can come down here and run your report. Now the difference is when you're inside the customer here and you run the report, it's only going to give you based off that customer. If you go under transactions, it's going to give you all customers based off whatever the date range that you do is, and then you run the report. Did you guys know that? Do you know these reports are possible? Let me know. They're not something I mess with a ton for my own personal business, but they're something you may want for yours. So you can run reports based off date range and all kinds of fun stuff. Never saw that before. Ooh, good. You guys learned something new. That's my goal. Between QuickBooks Online and desktop, which one would you prefer? I'm focusing primarily on teaching only desktop at this point because I just need to decide it. No, I didn't know that tidbit. You guys are learning something. We are a nonprofit, so great, Christy. Then you can, if you use the nonprofit version, you can run those reports you're asking about. You can also go up here and you can do like customer lists, customer information lists. Those are some extra fun reports. Your income tracker as well. Under vendors, you have the same thing. So, but the vendors are slightly different. You can print reports based off all bills you've entered for a certain date range, checks that you wrote during a certain date range, and then you run your report down here. You can also go into your vendors and you can say, I want Allstate for this time frame for these bank accounts, which is kind of cool. You could pick like the vendor you pay with a specific credit card or bank account, and then run the report and on a specific date range. So it gets pretty detailed and it's fun. So if you've been looking for some more detailed reports like that, highly recommend going in here and checking them out. So you can go in here and just do like reports. You can see all, but just remember, when you pick on the vendor, that's the vendor. But if you go under transaction, it's going to be all vendors, just for clarity. What else did I want to show you? I have notes. I think that's pretty much most of it to get started, because I could literally be here all day teaching you guys things, which I love, but I want you to go in and pull a report. So in the comments, let me know which report are you going to pull, or what was something you learned today that you can implement in your business right now. It might be something like, I'm going to pull my profit and loss for the first time, or I'm going to go check out some of these extra reports. Like there is a ton of reports that you can pull. You can also go, so we talked about the profit and loss. You can also go under your customers, which under customers and receivables, these are all the people that owe you money. So one of the benefits of using create invoices is that you can see who owes you money. Okay. And it gives you different date ranges. If you can, you can mess with this. You can see like which customers owe you money, how often do they pay you, all that kind of stuff. Under sales, which this is my favorite report that I teach during the Getting Started QuickBooks Workshop. So I'm not going to tell you today, because if you want to learn more about that, you can come to the Getting Started Workshop. You can do under job profitability. So if you're in construction or you want to know about job profitability, go in here and start looking at these. What was your estimate versus actual? This is what you estimated. This is what it actually cost. What was your difference? What was your revenue? Those kinds of things. Like what you estimate that you're going to make? What did you actually earn? Those kinds of things. We could spend all day just talking about reports. There is a ton of them. The best way to do it though is just to go in and find all kinds of things that you want. So you can do your mileages in here, your estimates, if you have that set up. And then if you're not doing that, you can go under your vendors. And if you use enter bills, you can pay bills with your or you can see who you owe with your accounts payable. Employees, I love the payroll. If you have my quarterly year-end forms course, I love to teach you to make sure you're pulling your liability report balances. So that's great if you're an employer. Under banking, literally there's hundreds of reports you could pull. Do you need them all? The answer is no. Where would you want to get started? Looking at your profit and loss, and if you do jobs by job or by class. That's the first thing to get started with and see what's going on in your actual business. You can do your budget and forecasting if you want, but where would I tell you to always get started, which would be your profit and loss? And then accounts receivable. And if you use accounts payable. There are more financial. So somebody asked, how do I know about my owner's equity? Well, a profit and loss is just income and expense. Balance sheet is your other accounts. So that's asset, liability, equity. So if you want to know where, and a balance sheet is at a snapshot at a specific date. A profit and loss has a beginning and end. A balance sheet is like in this moment, where I'm at on this date. So if you want to know your equity, you could go down and double click on like your owner's draw, and that would give you everything that's inside that report. Or shareholder contribution, shareholder draw. I have a little bit of everything because this is a sample file. You would probably only have 2 accounts, owner or shareholder contribution or distribution. But that is how you would get that report. That was a question that I know we got asked. Okay, so I'm gonna look at your question or look at your chat. You guys sound like you're going, I'd like to know which one of these reports you're gonna start using. My clients asked for owner's equity. Okay, so luckily I literally just covered owner's equity, so you didn't miss it. I'm going to check the P&L for the job and by class. Good, review where specifics can specify where you're making them. Thank you so much for the insights. I wish I could sit and listen to you all day. I literally, like, people so often, they're like, what? I mean, like, I could spend hours and hours No, I'm probably not going to play around with the statement cash flow today. I will show you how you can pull it, Gerald. I actually have another place I need to be in 10 minutes. So what I will say is you get in here and you start pulling it, and you basically just pull your statement of cash flow isn't going to be on accrual basis because it's on cash flow. So you're going to have like your net income that comes from your P&L, and then where has your income went in or come out, and it summarizes all that, and then it's going to be where was your beginning balance and ending balance. Okay. And it tells you like what were your investments, what was your financial activity, like loans, and what you were paying down, or where you were spending money, or where you borrowed money from, those kinds of things. Okay, so that's that. I'm so excited. You guys have it? No, I'm playing with it. Okay, cool. I will be comparison report. Loved that. Oh yeah, I like comparisons. Like, what did I do this year compared to last year? That's one of my favorite, especially if your business is growing, which I'm very fortunate mine is. And that is one of my favorite reports. Candus, why do you prefer QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online? What are the benefits? So recently, if you didn't hear in the past, I recently decided I'm focusing on desktop, and this is why. During this workshop, I would have either needed to do 2 workshops, or I would have needed to go back and forth with desktop and online. I prefer at this point to focus with desktop users because they still are the majority of users with QuickBooks at this point. And it's my preference is all it is. I like it. Now, I actually use QuickBooks Online for my personal confidence with QuickBooks, inspiring strength business, like my business. I do QuickBooks Online to stay sharp. But what I prefer about desktop is that it allows me to make more changes and adjustments for my clients or in the teaching process. Oh, and Kelly goes, and you don't have to continue paying for it. Yeah, that's my other thing. I'm a buy it, own it kind of person. I like to buy something. I like to own it, and then only upgrade every couple years. That's my preference. And the truth is, I talked about this recently in my loving a business or designing a business that you love. I came to a place where I can't serve everybody all the time. When people want to see online and desktop, I'm constantly having to go back and forth. And I just decided, and I recommend this for you too, is to find your niche. And I decided my niche for now is desktop online. Desktop online. QuickBooks Desktop and not online. I will still teach online. Can I serve online? Yes. I help online users, but at this point, for right now, I'm going to focus for the next, I don't know how many months, on desktop users, because I believed at some point, and you may have this belief too, if I serve both and I help everybody, I won't have to say no to anybody, which makes me feel better. But I also, yes, setting boundaries. If you came to my workshop that I did last week, is all about boundary setting. And so for me, I just decided that instead of trying to feel like I need to be everywhere and doing everything, I'm focusing. And that's me choosing to really own and be who I am, and makes me happy. And it doesn't necessarily make everybody else happy. Yeah, so somebody said, I'm an online user, I help. You can. So on online, you just go over to reports on the left, and you can use all these same reports. They still have by job, by customer, everything's still there. And you can go over to like where to modify. Like if you literally look, like customize is still there, customize report, and you can do the comparisons. There is some filters to the right that you would do as an online user, but see what I'm saying? Now I'm getting off to teaching online. So that's why I'm focusing. And it makes me happy. I'm an accountant bookkeeper. Would you prefer QuickBooks Payroll versus Intuit Payroll? I can't speak to that because I don't know enough about Intuit Payroll, if I was being 100% honest with you. The Intuit likes, so if you're going to be an accountant, I'm going to be totally honest with you. If you're an accountant and you're doing bookkeeping for other people and they like desktop, if you do QuickBooks Pro Advisor program and you upgrade to their accountant where you can process payroll, you can do 50 EIN numbers, which is 50 different customers, clients, and it's like $400 for the year, $500 for the year versus $500 per person. So there's benefits to the desktop. Which desktop software do you recommend? I think Pro works best for most people. If you want to be an accountant, like do like bookkeeping for other people and different types of bookkeeper. If you do the Pro Advisor program, which is what I recommend, you get the updated QuickBooks software and you can upgrade to, you get the accountants online too, and you can do, we don't have to have that. And you can do payroll. It's less expensive, and it's still where a lot of accountants are at, honestly. That's because I want to buy one to start getting to learn to work with it. I do Pro then. Jeanette, if you're not planning on processing payroll for people, QuickBooks Pro is fine. You can get it at Costco, is one of the best prices. And you have unlimited clients that you can work with on desktop. And then if you want, you can do, Intuit is very expensive. Yeah. So I'm telling you guys, these are ways you can save money. It's what I do. And I don't even do bookkeeping for other people, except for I have one client that I've had for years. Other than that, I don't do bookkeeping. I teach people how to use QuickBooks. That's my gift. That's my specialty. My gift is learning about your business and helping you set up or your client, and teaching you how to. So this is what I'm really getting into, which is teaching you how to ask your client the right questions that I ask the people I teach QuickBooks to, so that you can learn how to set up QuickBooks specifically to your clients. What if you process payroll for QuickBooks Desktop? Then I would recommend doing the Pro Advisor program. It's cheaper. You pay more money up front. Might cost you like $700 or $800 for the year, but you get the newest version, and you can process payroll for your clients. It's the best deal. Okay, that was way off what we were supposed to be talking about. Let's see what happens. You guys ask me questions. We will do some live Q&As next week. I also will answer questions on my Getting Started QuickBooks Workshop. And in full transparency, because that's who I am, I will be, Gracie put it in there, which is CandusCampfer.com/workshop. I will be opening my mastermind next week. This is something I only offer 2 to 3 times a year. It's where you get in, you can learn QuickBooks from me, but you can also ask me questions in a smaller group setting where I actually can look at your QuickBooks, help you customize it, and for bookkeepers, learn how to really set up your clients' books the way you want and to feel truly confident. Thank you, homesick, but wouldn't miss it. Kelly said, "Aw, thank you. It's so good to be here with you guys." I am going to go because I actually pre-scheduled myself for another place to be. I'm sorry, I have to run off. I usually like to be here for as long as you want. What workshop for QBO? I'm not focusing on QBO anymore, Rosemary. I think you already have Confidence with QuickBooks Online, and that will still be there, and you have lifetime access to it. But I'm not doing any workshops currently for QBO. I put my stake in the ground, and for right now, I'm focusing on desktop. I will work with private clients, which I only work with a couple clients a week for QuickBooks Online. So if you really want something, you can reach out to us for that. Yes, you said that. Good for you. Thank you. It's not in like being snooty or whatever, but it's more in service. It's very interesting. Once I decided that I'm focusing, I feel like I have more mental space to be truly present for you and focus more on like teaching you guys about QBox, which I mentioned in my last workshop, where you can, for desktop users, you can access it from different places, as well as it feels like I have more mental space for my family. I don't know if you've experienced that, but when you make a decision, and you get real clarity, it really helps you in your overall business. If you've been thinking about making changes, I highly recommend trusting yourself, trusting your heart, and moving forward with it. As a wrap, full circle, we're going to talk about what today's card is, which is I am totally in charge of my life now. Oh, that's funny. I've kind of forgot that, but that's how I feel. And it says, the moment I say positive affirmations, I step out of the victim role. I'm no longer helpless. I acknowledge my own power. You choose to create your life. At any time, if you are feeling like you are stuck in your life, you're not. It's just a thought. Change your thoughts. A belief is only something you keep thinking over and over again. It doesn't make it true. I tell myself that all the time. Like, why do I believe that this is true, that I have to do this or I have to do that? I encourage you to ask yourself questions, because when you start thinking for yourself and you start asking yourself questions, your life transforms and changes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me. I hope you learned something about your reports. Let us know. And if you'd like to join us for the Getting Started with QuickBooks Workshop, let me know. You will see emails coming out a little bit more than usual over the next few weeks, just making sure you guys know all the places I am. And I will be coming live a few times next week, just doing random Q&As to support you. So again, thank you for being here and thank you for trusting me. I will see you soon.